Okay, so I watched the sequel, the second in the long-ass cinematic endless loop of Godzilla movies. I saw Godzilla Raids Again. And I also managed to get this one, the original Japanese audio with English subtitles. And I gotta say, I was nowhere near as impressed by this movie as I was by the first one. This one came out just a year later in 1955. And I said in the last video that I was kind of expecting Godzilla movies to be a whole bunch of just guys in rubber suits going at it and slapping each other around, mixed with scenes of boring humans being boring and doing nothing interesting at all. And that's basically what this movie was. I was shocked that the first one had so much weight and drama and such intense theming behind it. And they threw all that out the window immediately, just the very second movie. And, basically, exactly what they were worried about happens. A new Godzilla shows up. And I think... okay. So, what happens is the movie opens up with the least interesting character ever put to film, some guy in an airplane. And some guy in an airplane crash lands on this island. And so they send his best friend, protagonist boring guy on an airplane, to go save his best friend, and shows up on the island. And they're just chilling out there, just chatting up a storm, not really in a hurry to get off of the island, I guess. And then all of a sudden, the two of them are startled by Godzilla wrestling with a big dinosaur that's like a quadruped with a bunch of spikes all over its back. I think its name is Ankylosaurus, but it's called Anguirus in a lot of media that I've seen, and a lot of the the wikis and stuff. It's got 50 different names: Ankylosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Anguirus, whatever. It's a big old dinosaur, and Godzilla is just inexplicably fighting with this dinosaur on this island. I guess like a hydrogen bomb or something, the radiation awoke these Godzillas at some time, and I don't even know. I don't even know where they come from. They just... God, it's hard for me to recollect the events in this movie so well, because it was really boring for the most part. It's just... I don't even remember why anything happens. I just know that stuff happens. I really struggled to pay attention to this one. I'm sorry. This is terrible. This is a terrible review. Don't watch this movie. It sucks, okay? So, okay. Okay, so there's these two pilots. I guess they're the protagonists. They don't do anything interesting at all. The movie is clearly dragging its feet. There's a scene with a whole bunch of old dudes in suits sitting around a big table talking about the fact that Godzilla is coming and that they have to do something about it, and that they don't have any countermeasures yet, but that they're working on it. They proceed to show some footage, some conveniently captured footage of the last Godzilla that attacked Tokyo, and they just play some B-roll footage from the first Godzilla movie, and it's which is good footage. I like getting to see him blast his radioactive fire breath onto the towers and melting them again. That was cool. But it feels like a lot of this movie is just trying to fill time. It's like an 80-minute full-length feature film, and just not a lot happens in it. There really is just way, a lot less characters having motivations and making moral decisions and being interesting, and a lot more just, business as usual, there's a Godzilla attacking. They don't care. They don't care until the attack begins. That's when it gets tense again. And what's cool about it this time around is that they've discovered that Godzilla is drawn to and angered by bright lights. So they get a whole bunch of, airplanes loaded up with light bombs, and when Godzilla comes, hunkering up to the shores of Osaka, they just fly the planes out and drop a whole bunch of little sparkly lights in the sky. And it leads Godzilla away from the city, and he starts walking away. Well, then, we just cut to some entirely new characters we haven't seen before. It's just it's like a paddy wagon filled with criminals, and they escape from the back of this truck, and then you just get an elongated chase sequence of the cops trying to catch this gang of thugs that are just running away, escaped convicts or whatever. And at some point the convicts decide to get inside of a big old gas truck that just, I guess, had the keys left in it. I don't know. They just get in the truck and drive off with it, and the cops are in like a high-speed chase with them. And the guys in the gas truck just happen to accidentally crash it into like a big old power plant, and the power plant just, boom, catches fire, huge flames. Godzilla sees it, turns around, and goes back to Osaka to rampage around the city. So their plan to draw him away didn't work. And, I mean, that was probably the most entertaining part of the movie, to be honest, because it was just like, oh, like, a chase sequence, like, what's happening? Who are these people? And it all just happened to be this self-contained incident that just had to happen at the worst possible time when Godzilla showed up. So we get more scenes of destruction, Godzilla stepping on trains and buildings and stuff. They're all like, pretty standard stuff. Same as the first movie, but less dramatic. Just a lot more, it's doing what we did the first time, but it's less cool. And eventually, I'm trying to think. No, I don't think anything important happens. Just while the destruction is happening, eventually Anguirus shows up, and Godzilla fights it in Osaka, in the city. And this is the second best part of the movie, because it's a big monster fight. And for the first big monster fight in a Godzilla movie, it wasn't terrible, but there was a lot of just meandering around going on, just them like slapping each other with their tails, and there's like a part where Godzilla uses his fire breath on Anguirus, and he's just standing there going, ah, and Anguirus' reaction is just like he's not even that bothered by it, just kind of like, oh god, and the fight doesn't feel that brutal or that rough until Godzilla just chomps down on Anguirus' throat and kills him. And that part feels brutal because there's like visible, blood coming out of its throat. But for the most part, the fight just feels kind of, I don't know, it's not very weighty. Like, the way Godzilla moved in the first movie, he moved very slowly, very much like a huge monster. And I think part of that had to do with the Godzilla suit weighing a ton, because after World War II they didn't have like rubber or a lot of materials to work with, so he just made his costume out of some form of cement. But for the second movie they slimmed down the costume a lot and made it a lot lighter so that the actor could actually move around and fight another monster. And while that, while it certainly helps the actor and, working conditions, I think it kind of hurt the movie a bit, because Godzilla doesn't feel like a giant, slow, hunkering monster anymore. He just looks like a guy in a rubber suit in this movie, because he's just moving way too fast. He's moving too fast and he looks too light for how big he should be, and there's nowhere near as many, camera angles that emphasize how big he is. A lot more of it's just faraway shots of him fighting the Ankylosaurus, and which, it's a fine fight, By the time the fight was over, I checked to see how far in the movie I was in, and I was surprised to see that I was almost an hour of the way through it, and I was like, oh, okay, this went by a lot faster than I thought. Maybe I like this movie, It's really easy to watch. And then the next 30 minutes of the movie were the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. Just, Godzilla, the whole... the key attraction of this movie is that Godzilla fights another dinosaur. And that is over with halfway through the movie. So then the rest of the movie is just all these boring-ass humans trying to figure out what to do with Godzilla. Well, we have to figure out a way to beat him again. So what do? Well, we'll fly our planes out and try to blow him up, I guess. And so they follow Godzilla out to these snowy mountains or whatever, and they drop a bunch of bombs on him. And this is the worst shot in the movie, where they're flying above him and Godzilla just looks like a toy. They're so far up and away from him and looking straight down that he just looks like a toy. He's not moving, he's just got his arms out in front of him and he's holding perfectly still. So yeah, it's like if I just picked up the camera and pointed it at my bedroom floor and just said oh, see that thing's really huge actually. You're not convincing me of anything, movie. And so they fly their planes out to kill Godzilla, and the best friend character guy, who, not the main character, but the one who had to be rescued in the beginning. He crashes his plane and dies, because I guess Godzilla spat fire at him or something. And the main character is like really sad for like a second, and then I don't remember if they... I feel like I could be remembering this wrong, but I feel like the main character then like ends the mission there and then flies out again later in the movie because they have to fill so much time. And this time, the second go around with Godzilla, he realizes that he can bury the monster in the ice by blowing up the mountains around it, and then he does that. And I basically zoned out for several minutes until he finally, we got to the part of the movie where Godzilla is buried in the ice, and I woke up and I realized I was conscious again, and then that happens and they beat him, and he's buried under the ice, and the movie just kind of ends. And man, overall it was pretty mediocre. There's not a lot of reason to watch this movie. I should really say, like, what I'm doing here by watching all the Godzilla movies, I'm just doing this as like a little fun project because I'm bored and I don't have a lot going on in my life at this moment. I'm like in purgatory right now, waiting to be able to leave my current job so I can, like, go to school, so I can, like, do a month-long program so I can get a better job, and I'm just in perpetual limbo right now. So what am I doing to fill my time? I'm watching 30 Godzilla movies. I don't recommend anyone do this at all. Like, I'm making these videos so I can tell you which ones are worth watching, and this one is not, honestly. If you want to see, if you want to get what the appeal of Godzilla is, this is one of the ones that will drive you away and make you think, well, maybe this isn't for me, because, God, this one hurt. Again, I have to say, like, I feel like I'm overemphasizing my emotions toward the movie, but I really don't feel that strongly about it. If I had to give it like a score, I'd probably give it like a strong 4 out of 10, or like a 5 out of 10. I don't know, I just thought it was, like, the monster fight was fine. I don't know, it was mildly entertaining, is what I would say. And there's nothing else to it. So, yeah, that's Godzilla Raids Again. The next one is called King Kong vs. Godzilla, which, just from the title, that one sounded very interesting to me. I'll give my opinion in the next video. So, see you then.